Welcome to this episode of Ink It Up with Jessica TV. I'm Jessica Taylor, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you this fun rainbow color blocking technique. So I came up with this after I recently rearranged my cardstock to be in rainbow order on my storage holder. And as I was doing that, I was looking at how some of the colors went together, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to cut some strips of this and make a background? So that's what I did. And you can see on each one of these cards, I have 5 different colors in the background, and then I made it into a card. So let's go ahead and see how you do that right now. When you select which colors you're going to use for your backgrounds, you can go with more of an ombre effect where it's one color, in this case pinks, and you go from the lightest to the darkest. Or you can select a rainbow of colors where you would go just as the rainbow does, Roy G. Biv, from red to a blue or purple at the end. Or if you really want to, you can just pick your favorite colors and mix them up as you like. No matter what colors you choose to use for your background, you're going to cut them into 1-inch wide strips that are at least 4 inches long. So I've cut these to be the full 8.5-inch long strips so that I can make 2 cards out of each one. But if you're using maybe cardstock scraps that you have, you just want to make sure that they're 1 inch wide by at least 4 inches. And I start with a base of Whisper White. You could use any color for your base, but I use Whisper White, and I cut this to 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And the 5 inches is because when you have 5 strips that are 1 inch wide, they're going to add up to 5 inches. So then I just take this piece and fully cover it with tape. Well, I guess not fully. I put tape all around the outsides because I want to make sure that my strips stay stuck down. And then I just put a couple extra lines across the middle because my stripes are going to go this way. Then I start with my first color, and I start with it right in the corner. The better placement you can get for this first strip, the straighter your lines are going to be. Okay, so then I just place my first strip, and then I move to my second one, and I line it up with the bottom of the cardstock, and then I just make sure that I butt it directly up against my first piece. Then I add the next strip. Now, if the ends of your cardstock aren't perfectly straight, that's okay. You can cut that off and trim it nicely at the end. And then I just keep working to add my next strips. I'm using a double-sided tape. If you like the Tombow multi-purpose glue or a kind of glue that, maybe a glue stick that you can move the pieces around easier, that might be easier, especially to start with. And then I'm going to add my final strip. So you see, this one I actually have a little bit of extra white along the edge. So what I could do is take my scissors and trim that off if I wanted to. But this is also why on all of my cards I added a white mat around my cardstock strips, because that way it just kind of hides any of those little imperfections when you do it that way. So then you can't tell that there's extra white showing. So the next thing we need to do is cut this down so it will fit on a card. I'm going to cut it down so it's just on my white piece. You could take your scissors and cut along this right here, or I'm just going to use my paper cutter, and I know I want it to be 3 3/4 inches wide, so that's where I'm going to line it up, and then I'm just going to cut. So then I have these strips that I can use for another card. So once you have your background pieces glued to your cardstock and you have your base set, you can either leave it just like that, plain, and add a greeting, or you can stamp on it with VersaMark. And the magic of VersaMark is that no matter what color cardstock you stamp it on, it just looks a little bit darker than that color. So if I open it, it's a watermark stamp pad, and you can see it's just, it's actually kind of dirty looking, mine is, but it's just a clear ink. So when you stamp it on your rainbow background, it's just going to look a little bit darker than each of your colors of cardstock. So on this one, I stamped some little, they're almost like stars across the background, and I added my greeting in the center. For this one, I stamped balloons in the background, and you can see they just change colors as they go across the different colors of cardstock. This one I stamped the balloons, actually let me compare these. This one's I stamped just the outline of the balloons, and this one I added the inside to make them a little bit darker. For this one I stamped the butterfly, and it's a big stamp, so it goes almost all the way across the cardstock pieces. And for this one, I stamped the butterfly in VersaMark ink, and then I embossed it with clear embossing powder, so it just makes it a little bit darker and shinier. Once you've stamped your background or done whatever you want to do with it, you are going to want to tape it onto the white piece that's just a little bit bigger. And again, this just gets rid of any imperfections where you can see the white around the outside and makes your colors really pop. So this piece is 3 7/8 inches by 5 1/8 inch. So just a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to add some adhesive all the way around to tape that on. Then it's time to decide what color we want to use for the card base for this card. And to decide that, what I usually do is just pull some of the colors from my rainbow background. So for instance, a lot of times I found myself using one of the end colors. So this is Lovely Lipstick, and this is what it would look like on a Lovely Lipstick card. Or this side is Blueberry Bushel. So this is what it might look like on a Blueberry Bushel card base. I really like that. Or the center color is Pineapple Punch, and this is how it would look on Pineapple Punch. So you just have to decide which color card base you like the best and go with that one. Then once you have your card base finished, that's when you're going to add your main greeting or other embellishments. You can get as creative with this as you'd like. One stamping technique that goes really well with this rainbow color blocking background technique is a two-tone stamping on one stamp. So for this one, I have a happy birthday stamp, and I used 2 different ink pads. I used Mango Melody and Pumpkin Pie to ink up the same stamp. So let me go ahead and show you how I do that. So I start with the lighter color, in this case Mango Melody, and I just ink up the top half of the stamp by using the edge of the ink pad. Then I take the bottom of the stamp and ink it up with the edge of the darker ink pad, in this case Pumpkin Pie. And then you can see when you stamp it, it has a really nice two-toned look. Another way to get this two-toned look on your stamps is to use a spectrum pad. These come uninked from Stampin' Up, so you can add whatever colors you want in them. And in this case, I've added an ombre of blue colors. You just push the ink pad together, and then you can just ink it up across multiple colors. In this case, this is Pacific Point and Blueberry Bushel. And there you have another two-toned look. So this two-tone stamping on your greetings will look really great with your rainbow color blocked backgrounds. So I really hope that you give these techniques a try, and I can't wait to see what you make with them. Happy stamping!